Hey y'all, I'm Blake Shelton. I love that country music connects people all over this great nation, but unfortunately so does something else, childhood hunger. 15 million children struggle with hunger in America. That's why the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks works to rescue our surplus food to help provide billions of meals to families in need across the country. Join the fight against hunger at feedingamerica.org. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Blues America is supported by the Rhythm Room. The world famous and historical Rhythm Room Concert Club is Arizona's premier blues hotspot, hosting nightly live music. Located at 1019 East Indian School Road in Phoenix and online at www.rhythmroom.com.
Damn right we got the blues. Blues America. Right now.
Pour some beer, grab a seat, and kick your feet up. It's Blues America. Blues at the break.
South, child, don't you wanna go? Woman, I'm trouble. I be all worried mind. Well, I just can't be satisfied, and I just can't keep from crying. Well, I feel like snapping, pistol in your face. I'm gonna let some graveyard be your resting place. Woman, I'm trouble. I'll be all worried mind. Oh, well, I just can't be satisfied, and I just can't keep from crying. Well, I'm all in my sleep, hear my doorbell ring, looking for my baby, don't see not a doggone thing. Woman, I'm trouble. I'll be all worried mind. When in the world I'll be satisfied, baby, but I just can't keep from crying. Not a doggone thing, woman, I'm trouble. I be all worried mind. Ain't no way in the world I'll be satisfied, man. I just can't keep from crying. Well, I know my little old baby, she gonna jump and shout. That old train is leaving, I come walking out. Woman, I'm trouble. I be all worried mind. Ain't no way in the world be satisfied, and I just can't keep from crying.
Well, I Promotional consideration for Blues America is provided by the Southwest Musical Arts Foundation, this station, and the listeners of public radio.
This is Paul Osher, ladies and gentlemen, and you are listening to Blues. No, that's Chuck's. This is Paul Osher, ladies and gentlemen, and you're listening to Blues America.
Headed down to the chicken shack. It's Blues America time.
Change my evil ways. I've got a New Year's resolution.
Hiya. If you just turned this thing on, let me tell you what you're doing. You're listening to the Blues America 2018 Rewind Show, featuring some of the best memories of the year. Now, one thing that I always like to do is ask the guests to explain how they define the blues. It's a generic interview question, but I love it because I always get a different answer. And there's no wrong answer. I view it as like, part of my research survey questions. So coming up next, I had the honor and privilege to speak for the very first time to Alligator recording artist Marcia Paul. This is show number 148, and I ask her to define the blues. Let's rewind. Take a listen. Marcia, we just heard the voice of the old man, the legendary Ray Charles, and he was definitely somebody who knew what the blues was.
Yes.
But what does it mean to you? Now, I love this question because there's no wrong answer, and most people have something different to say about it.
You're right. There's, I'm trying to figure an analogy. I guess I'm thinking here now. If you ask me, what is a table? And I said, well, it's a flat surface with legs that keep it up off the floor. And, and that would be a definition of a table. But, the what you're seeing as a table is not what I'm seeing as a table. It could have 3 legs or 4 legs, or 5 or 9. Or platform, or it could be made of many different substances, and that is, to me, it would be equally difficult to define the blues. You have Chicago blues, you have Delta blues, you've got Gulf Coast rhythm and blues, you got soul blues and blues rock and West Coast swing and the stuff that came out of Rhode Island, which is, inexplicably funky and and cool, and like Roomful of Blues. But if to quote Willie Dixon, the blues is the facts of life, and maybe that's ultimately the best description of it.
of Blues World is one of my personal favorite releases of 2018 by Toronto-based artist Sugar Brown. Now, Sugar Brown has a PhD and is a professor at a major university, so it's no surprise that we can have a deep conversation about the blues. Let's rewind the tape to show 156. Explain the story behind the Sugar Brown moniker. Who gave you that name?
Well, Sugar Brown, the name of Sugar Brown was given to me by the singer by the name of Tail Dragger. So it was Tail Dragger and the Lazy Boys, and we played every Wednesday night at this place on the west side called the 5105 Club. And that was on 5105 West North Avenue, deep in the west side of Chicago. And I was his harp player, and he finally one day said, Ken, you need a name. You need a stage name because Ken is too boring and no one can remember or pronounce your last name, Kawashima. And I said, all right, well, go ahead. So he said, well, we're going to call you Sugar Brown because the line was, you ain't black, but you sure ain't white. So you're going to be Sugar Brown. And I thought about it. I'm like, okay, yeah, all right. All right, I accept that. That's true. True that I'm not black and I'm sure not white.
But, Chicago's changed and a lot of those places are gone. I mean, the blues, I guess, has changed everywhere, which is why I love to listen to and I appreciate your work.
Oh, thank you.
Because when you mention having influences of Tom Waits or adding a touch of the Animals to tweak the sound in a dramatic way, I appreciate that because I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I know their influences were the blues artists.
Yeah.
And more importantly, I'm still hearing Little Mac Simmons in your music. I'm still hearing and getting the West Side Blues.
Right.
But what I notice in many artists today is they can't do this. I mean, what happens is such a progression of music that I struggle to hear any blues at all.
That's right.
And it's almost like they lose touch with the bass.
The concept of blues has become completely unmoored from its foundation, and it's become completely detached from its archive and its historical origins in the name of trying to somehow marketize basically bands and their music and to appeal to a broader audience, a contemporary audience, et cetera, and these many artists feel that they need to somehow expand the frontiers of the blues into different genres to maintain some kind of contemporary legitimacy. And for me, that's the death of the blues, basically, in a word. I mean, it's simply an abandonment of the blues, and it's turned into an excuse not to even learn the blues. It's turned into a kind of a crutch or an alibi not to actually listen and study these great blues artists, that were so great,
You're listening to the 2018 Rewind Show on Blues America. Coming up next, I was so excited to speak with Shamika Copeland, who's always very gracious enough to call the show. And, I love it when a guest can just take a moment to, just be a real person. So, what we have is not a guy behind a microphone interviewing an artist, but just two people having a conversation. Kind of like this. Let's take a listen. We're both parents who have dads that have passed, and my dad passed about the same time as yours. I wonder if you feel the presence of your father around your son, and what would he say if he was here?
I feel like my dad is completely inside of my child. my boy acts just like him. He's got his attitude and everything. But I think he'd be really happy. I think he'd be really proud. I really do. And what about yours?
Oh, well, every time he does something bad, I said, yeah, that's Grandpa, because your dad is an angel.
Yeah.
I wonder if your father ever pressured you to take guitar lessons. I mean, that wouldn't be too unusual for a parent.
No, and my father never ever mentioned me playing guitar ever.